is the AT&T Global Village tent. It's a communications display center, and in between that and its sister tent, just on the left-hand side, there is a stage. Every night since Saturday the 20th, the day that the Olympics officially kicked off with the first athletic competition, there has been a concert. Kenny Rogers, one of the featured performers at those concerts, and it was either underneath or near a lighting tower that is about 100 to 150 feet in front of that stage, that there was an explosion at 20 minutes after 1 this morning. Mayor Bill Campbell, the mayor of Atlanta, confirms one person was killed in that explosion. 50 to 60 others were injured. Piedmont Hospital, one of the nearby hospitals to the center of Atlanta, reports that they have received 11 injured people thus far and are expecting more to come in the minutes just ahead of us. Another hospital over on the other side of Atlanta, no reports yet on how many injured people they have received, but certainly a phalanx of ambulances and emergency equipment was on hand immediately after this explosion occurred. They have been in a standby position really for weeks in case anything were to happen. There is some footage that, I'm sorry, I can't tell you which hospital that is. I was up near Piedmont Hospital earlier in the day, which has a similar look to that, but that may not be Piedmont Hospital. But a couple of ambulances rolling in, injured people. Many of the injuries, from what we've heard, lacerations, potentially showing some evidence of shrapnel. Dr. Taghart, who joined us on the roof just a little while ago, was telling us that there was evidence in one person that he personally treated of a shrapnel wound, and that there may have actually been something underneath the skin. Georgia Baptist Hospital, which is the other hospital nearby to downtown, is receiving 48 people injured. 11 people at Piedmont Hospital, though the number probably now is higher. 11 at last report. 48 people at Georgia Baptist Hospital. If we want to come back on camera, here we have some information to pass along to you. Bob Brennan, who is a spokesman for the Atlantic Olympic Committee, calls the explosion horrible, but says that there are no plans to change Saturday's schedule of competition, which begins in a few short hours down at the Olympic Stadium with the track and field events and at many other venues here in and around the Atlanta area. The games will go on despite the explosion that we heard in Centennial Olympic Park at 20 minutes after 1. To give you some kind of idea of how large this explosion was, it certainly made a large bang. We were traveling in a car, a fairly well-insulated car, about 2 blocks away from Centennial Olympic Village when the explosion went off. We were driving by a club in which James Brown was performing. The music was turned up quite loud, and the explosion was heard over top of that sound. But because there was so much noise coming out of the club, we looked originally, Jim Zurich, who is our cameraman, who's behind the camera right now, who was driving the car, said that sounded like an explosion. So we looked around to see what people's reaction in the street was, and there wasn't even any kind of reaction of surprise. So it may have been that being so close to the music, they thought that perhaps it was just a part of the concert. But it was loud enough and strong enough that it shook the windows in the car and actually made the car vibrate. A loud, sharp, short bang, not a large boom that might be associated with a substantial explosion that might have taken down some structures or done severe damage to a building, but a very large bang, more along the lines of if you had one of those quarter sticks, as they call them, that some people set off on either Memorial Day or on July 4th. It was a fairly loud, sharp explosion, and the extent of damage to the immediate area where the explosion occurred does not appear to be extensive, though there are extensive injuries in the nature of 50 to 60 people injured and 1 person confirmed dead. The level of activity around here has subsided somewhat. The hour is getting late. It's now 10 minutes to 4 on a Saturday morning in Atlanta, and now that the area has been cordoned off and secured, the police are now undertaking an investigation to find out what caused this explosion And if it was a device, as the FBI is saying in published reports, that there are no more devices that are inside the Centennial Olympic Park. Elizabeth Holland is a nurse who ran a nurses station just right underneath the communications center of the AT&T Global Village. She joined us on our rooftop location a few minutes ago. Let's hear what she had to say in the wake of the explosion. Elizabeth Holland, you're wearing an AT&T shirt. Were you working in some sort of official capacity with the Global Village?
Yes, sir. I have a small company, and we were providing first aid for AT&T, and we were underneath, our first aid station is located underneath the communications center, and it was, I would say, approximately 1 o'clock, I'm not quite sure, but cleaning up the room, and then all of a sudden we heard this very loud explosion. And I had a paramedic working with me, and he ran up the steps to where the stage area was, and ran up there, and evidently that's where, the explosion had occurred.
We should clarify that it appears the time was something around 20 minutes after 1.
I'm not quite sure. This is why I'm saying it was...
Dr. Hart, who I take it works with you, responded to...
No, sir. He was a visitor in the park. And through his generosity, he told the security guard that he was a physician, and they asked him to come in and help us. And we saw 3 people with minor injuries.
And what did you see of the injuries?
Head laceration, 2 head lacerations and 1 neck laceration, and injury to the cheek.
Did the people give you any kind of indication as to whether something hit them?
Yes, sir. They said that something, after it exploded, then hit them. But they did not describe what it was.
Did you see the area where this explosion took place?
No, sir, I did not. But there wasn't any smoke or anything. Our room is in close proximity to the steps where you go up to evidently where this explosion was. And there was no smoke or anything like that,
We seem to have established, at this point at least, that the explosion took place in or near the tower that provides the lights and is the area where the soundboard is located for the entertainment up there on the stage. The people who you treated with the lacerations, were they coherent? Were they in shock?
Yes,
How were they?
They were frightened. One gentleman had a very deep laceration on his forehead, and he was very frightened. We had one other young lady that had been cut on the head, and it scared her very badly.
How long did it take for the authorities to evacuate the area?
Very short period of time. The EMS system was just superb. When they brought 2 people in to me, and I told them to get on the telephone and call 911. And initiate the ambulances, get them over there, and evidently several people had called.
Elizabeth Holland, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you coming up to our broadcast location.
Thank you.
And that was Elizabeth Holland, who is a nurse who operates a medical facility on the ground level of the AT&T Global Village.
Has something that he would like to say. He has new information. Is it possible for us to go to Mike Von Frem now?
Yeah, Antonio, we understand that there have been 25 people now taken to Grady Memorial Hospital, which is very near where Centennial Park is. That's an excellent hospital as far as trauma cases. As you know, that Atlanta has a history of crime in the downtown, a violent area, and the doctors down there are very well equipped to handle emergencies. Also, Antonio, to try and give you some perspective on Centennial Park, you may have seen the pictures of people trying to escape the heat, the fountains that go off. That's in Centennial Park. People at all times of night would just get soaking wet to relieve themselves of the heat, and they'd frolic and enjoy it. It's where the vendors crowded around. It's where you could buy all the Olympic pins. Everywhere you turned around and looked, you could exchange pins. People gathered there. AT&T has a large complex that has just hundreds and hundreds of telephones. It's where people can gather to make phone calls, to call their relatives, and it's where concerts take place. And it's a very noisy area. It's loud, so that when people say this explosion really eclipsed the band that was playing, it must have been something else. And Centennial Park is also a place where people go to look for bricks. When you were, they were selling tickets to the Atlanta games. In addition to buying tickets, ACOG, the Atlanta committee that's putting this on, tried to solicit people to buy bricks to build Centennial Park. And if you bought a brick, You got your name, you got your address, you got your little piece of history implanted on the streets. So people would gather in Centennial Park, they'd look all around and find their name, and they'd take a picture of it. It truly is the gathering place. Once again, if you don't have a ticket to the games, you can still take your family down to Centennial Park. You can have an awful lot of fun. All the vendors are doing a pretty good business there, and it's where people are exchanging pins. And I mentioned to you earlier that you would have to show tickets, and you'd have to go through magnetometers to get into the Omni, which is where the volleyball, many other things are taking place, to get into the Georgia Dome, which is where the Dream Team is playing. I mean, that's just a stone's throw from Centennial Park. But you did not have to show a ticket. You did not have to go through a magnetometer to get into Centennial Park. So police had asked people to be on the lookout for any suspicious packages. I did a piece on security before the game started, and they said, you know, you can't protect the entire downtown Atlanta. We're going to have to rely on the people going to the games to be on alert, to watch out. And there are reports that people did see a package that was next to the platform where the band was playing, and that there was about 2 minutes where police tried to, in an orderly fashion, get some of the camera crews away from there. They didn't want to cause a stampede and, you know, say bomb explosion. It wasn't that bad, but there was some warning. And once again, Antonio, we understand that there's 25 people at Grady Memorial Hospital. It's a good place if you're injured to be taken to, and the hospitals around the Atlanta are all prepared to take more people, and tonight they're very busy.
Thanks, Mike. As Mike mentioned, the sound of the explosion was so loud that it overwhelmed an already very loud concert there. We already showed you how loud the sound was, that it overwhelmed the concert and it broke into programming from ESPN. We also showed you some earlier tape of the explosion, and we now have another perspective on the explosion as it took place.
She has so many people bothering her all the time. I didn't want to be another person.
And nobody's bothering you, right?
Well,
get out there. Get out there. To the north. To the north. You got it going?
Example of that's a pretty stunning example of.
Again, that was video of what happened from German television. Apparently, somebody was interviewing Janet Evans, the Olympic swimmer, and as the explosion took place, and they were indoors, it seems, and you could hear the glass rattling and the force of that explosion, despite the fact that they were inside. So again, gives you a sense of what power was behind this explosion in Atlanta. If anybody is just joining us, there has been an explosion at Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, and there are a number of casualties. Judy Muller is there on the scene. Judy, what can you tell us?
No.
Apparently, we do not have Judy at this point. But again, for those of you that just saw the explosion, it must have been a horrifying moment for the people that were there. There were thousands of people there at that concert, and when you see people that were as removed from it as the people that we just showed you in that tape, reacting as strongly as they did, it really gives you a very clear and graphic sense of how powerful this must have been and how scary it must have been for the people that were there. We are trying to confirm the number of casualties. We only have confirmation on one person that has died at this point, and 50 to 60 people injured. As Mike Von Frem said, some of them have been taken to O'Grady Hospital. We also believe that some have been taken to Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. The FBI is there. The ATF is also there. They have secured the area to make sure that there is nothing else there. There were reports that it was a pipe bomb. The FBI has apparently confirmed that it was an explosive device. As we have told you, the Centennial Olympic Park is right in the center of Atlanta. Again, one of the major cities in the country, and it was basically impossible to secure this area, but apparently they did have some security that saw a suspicious device and tried to move people away from it. Unfortunately, not in time to avoid injuries. We have some tape of another eyewitness that we'd like to show you.
way out, and so we turned around the corner, and then something went off, and it shook, and it was about 3 big booms, and
Slings flew by and hit her leg, and you could smell sulfur. Something was burning, and I was about 20 feet. I kept walking up towards where I thought we could go out, and this lady stopped me, and she said no, and there was a guy down about 20 feet away, and he was bleeding. And
it was just a loud noise came from nowhere. Just like boom. Listen, it was a loud noise from out of nowhere. People got to running, and people was hollering, "It's a bomb! It's a bomb!" Then chaos just broke out.
So all you heard was a loud bang, and everything was shaking, and then you just saw people just running everywhere, and what happened, and you hear little people saying bomb, bomb, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and you just start thinking the worst. I mean, we're thinking people were running. They were running away from the park because they're thinking that's where it is, and it's only going to get worse. And so we ran away, still looking back, and everybody was just running away. There were a couple girls that looked like they fell along the way, and girls were crying, and it was just chaos. Everybody was just afraid.
Yes. Eyewitness reports of the chaos there in Atlanta earlier this morning as a result of this explosion. There are now unconfirmed reports, and please bear with us. Things change. Things are very fluid in the moments immediately after something like this. We are looking now at live pictures, or we're looking at live pictures from Atlanta provided by ESPN. There are unconfirmed reports now that after securing the area, the police have found 2 other explosive devices. Again, this is not confirmed. This is being reported, however. We will let you know as soon as we have confirmation on that. Again, if you are just joining us, there has been an explosion at Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta. This is right there in the center of Atlanta. For those of you that have watched the Olympics, you'll know it because you've seen it numerous times. It's where the center of all the festivities are. It's where the 5 Olympic rings with the spouting water, the fountains, where children have been playing and getting out of the Atlanta heat. It has really been the main center of celebration for these games that until now had really been a great success, despite some criticism from abroad as to excessive American commercialism. But now, of course, this is tragically marring these games, and despite all efforts that have been made to make sure that Atlanta was secure, apparently those efforts had failed tonight. Now, we have some pictures of the SWAT teams as they arrived at the scene. These, I believe, were taped earlier tonight. This was taped earlier tonight. This is the enormous security force that is present in Atlanta for these games, and these are some of those security forces as they arrived to make the area completely secure and to make sure that there are no further injuries and that there are no further devices. Mike Von Fremd is in Atlanta, and Mike, what else do you have for us?
And Tony, we're beginning to get some reports in from the hospital where the injured are being taken. Grady Hospital is the nearest one to downtown. They've got an excellent trauma unit. And the hospital confirms that one woman has died, but they say that she did not have any blast injuries. So it's feared, and this is all, coming in very haphazardly, but it's feared that perhaps she had a heart attack from the panic and chaos that ensued after the explosion. Grady Hospital says that they have had 31 injured people taken. They said they no longer are expecting that any more will be brought. Another nearby hospital, Georgia Baptist, reports that there are 45 people that are injured there, that there is one woman in surgery, but that is what we are getting, the reports from the hospitals, who certainly have their hands full tonight, Antonio.
And I also have some reports that from Piedmont Hospital, apparently there are 11 people there with minor injuries, and I believe this other hospital, Crawford Long Hospital, it seems that they have 5 people there with minor injuries. So if these numbers bear out, there are significantly more people injured than those that were reported by the mayor of Atlanta earlier. By a quick calculation here, it would seem to be close to 100 injuries being treated at hospitals in Atlanta right now, and again, only one confirmed fatality. We have more tape of eyewitnesses to show you.
I was talking on the phone to somebody back home, and I was talking about like this, and the street was right here to my right, and boom. And I turned over there. I knew I'd been hitting my knee, and And I look over here, and two guys are down. They were bloody, both of them. One of them was about 10 feet away from me, and one was about 30 feet away from me.
I got a witness on the break here with me. He's one of the
Pretty bad. Both of them were, I would call serious hurt.
When I got down there, there were some people scattered in the street, but from what I heard, they had been trampled by the crowds of people trying to get out of the way.
There were some reports of people stampeding as a result of obviously being scared by this explosion and running away, and that some of the injuries may have taken place during that stampede. Could we please try to cut that microphone? Thank you. We're trying to get things here together as well as we possibly can. We apologize for the technical problems. For anyone who is just joining us, I'd like to recap again. There has been an explosion at Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta. We now have some confirmation that there are around 100 people that were injured and one fatality. And we are going to keep you updated as well as we can all night. And we are now going to go to our affiliate WSB in Atlanta, joining their live coverage to see what they have.
Sniffing dog in the backside of the vehicle. And there are choppers flying over top at this moment. I'm not sure whether they're probably security choppers. I'm sure the news choppers are probably not even allowed over the area at this moment in time.
Well, you're correct about that, Carl. The airspace is severely restricted to news helicopters and any unauthorized aircraft, and certainly at a time like this, that would be the case. So the park area is virtually closed down. All people have left, and we have heard reports that traffic on Interstate 20 is not being allowed to get on the downtown connector. This may have changed, but this was about an hour ago, keeping traffic out of the downtown area altogether.
Well, a security sweep is going on right there. Excuse us, Carl. Over at Grady Hospital, the injured are being treated. Sally Sears reported just a few moments ago that 31 people were there, one dead. She said 2 were in surgery. She now joins us again live with an update. Sally.
Good evening, Monica. I am with Pat Jones, who's just stepped out of the emergency room. Ms. Jones is a nursing assistant from Clayton, Georgia, right?
Correct.
When you heard the news, you came hustling down to volunteer.
Well, I called the emergency room and asked them if they needed assistance, because being in the middle of the night, it'd probably be hard to reach everybody, and they said they could use some help, so I came down and helped them out a little bit.
Can you tell me what you saw inside?
Well, it was pretty chaotic for a little while, and people not knowing exactly what was going on and who was there and everything, but they pretty much got everybody straightened out and where they need to go now. There were some pretty serious injuries. And
can you describe what you saw?
Well, I'd rather not, for patient confidentiality purposes, and maybe family people don't know. But
the doctors who've come out have told us it's primarily shrapnel type wounds.
That looks like that, yes.
What condition are the patients in? Are most of them conscious, and are they talking?
It seemed to me that most of them were. Yeah, the ones that I saw were.
A good range of ages, young and old, or mostly middle-aged?
I think mostly younger, maybe 20s and 30s.
You didn't see any children, did you?
No.
Well, that's good
yeah.
as well. We've heard that there is one fatality. Do you know of any more than that?
No, I don't know of any more than that.
Again, Miss Pat Jones from Clayton, who came. She's a nursing records specialist, and that's the kind of specialty that's very needed at a time like this.
Grady's doing a good job in there.
And you're headed away because did they tell you they no longer need it?
Yes, it looks like they pretty much have everything under control.
So you're headed out for the evening. Well, thank you for coming in. Thanks, Miss Jones. You heard her say that things are calm inside, that the patients were being taken care of. She volunteered to come in. She has nursing experience from Clayton, Georgia. She came down. The hospital has asked her to head on out, and they are trying to control what people are saying as they come in and out, because they want to make sure everybody's saying the right thing. And so we were able to talk with Ms. Jones as she was leaving, because she did volunteer to come in, and now she's leaving. As we have more information here at Grady, I will be getting it back to you. Live at the hospital, I'm Sally Sears, Channel 2 Action News.
Thank you, Sally. Of course, Grady, being the closest hospital, probably received the bulk of the victims, but other hospitals around the Atlanta area were also receiving them, including Piedmont Hospital. We have some tape shot at Piedmont from some who were taken there for treatment of injuries who also witnessed this episode. Let's hear what they have to say.
I've never heard anything that loud before. I mean, my ears were ringing for like 15 minutes. I mean, it was painful. I mean, it was so loud. And she was to my right, so I mean, everything was coming from the right. And I heard this explosion, And we thought it had something to do with the, with the concert. We thought it was some sound effects or something. And then we just stopped and thought, that was a bomb. That was something that went off and everything. And then you saw people, and the security said, get out of the park. But then there were some people that was just laying on the ground. And we ran. We just ran because I wasn't, I wasn't trying to see if there was any, any other bomb around.
And the only reason why you weren't hurt is because Josette here was standing to the side of you.
Right. She was sitting to the right of me. And, she, if she wouldn't have been sitting there, yeah, she had jeans on. But if she wouldn't have been sitting there, it would have, it would have got me. And when it got on her side, that was, close to, would have been even closer to me. But, she got...
metal went right through my jeans. It went right through my jeans.
Yeah, that's how powerful it was.
Did you see Did you see a lot of other people fall?
Yeah.
I saw some people fall. I saw metal flying everywhere. I had metal on me. And I saw smoke, and it was very loud explosion.
We were literally
stuff
picking the metal
off
off
the metal going everywhere.
Clothes.
I'm sorry, you were?
I said we were literally picking the metal out of her, pulling them out of her jeans. It was just, that metal, when it exploded, just the metal just flew everywhere. Full force. It was, it shot right at me.
Oh, it's a good thing that you're okay. Thanks a lot, Louise.
Yeah. I was one of the women injured in the explosion at the Olympic Centennial Park. This came over the wire just a few minutes ago. The 3 Atlanta hospitals are reporting they've treated at least 96, 31 at Grady, 13 people at Piedmont Hospital. And Piedmont Hospital spokesman says that some of the injuries treated at the facility, as a matter of fact, most of the injuries treated at the facility were minor. As you saw, that young lady who was leaving the hospital, she talked about the metal being in her jeans because she was wearing jeans. We do have 1 confirmed death. We have been told that 3 others might have been killed. We do know that there were 4 Georgia State patrolmen and 2 DEA agents who were also injured, and we know of 1 firefighter. All we know at this point, it was some type of explosive device. We do have video of it, some type of explosive device that went off at the base of the light tower during a concert, and that's all we know. We don't know whether it was a bomb. That's still being investigated. The park has been closed right now except for firefighters and for police officers who are scouring it, looking for anything they can find. They're trying to make it secure. John?
This tape was shot much earlier in the evening, in fact, shortly after the blast occurred. As Monica said, the blast did occur in a light tower near where a band was performing. Thousands of people had gathered in the park. They were having a wonderful time. The explosion occurred. It appeared to be well off the ground in that light tower. Sent shrapnel, pieces of metal, pieces of debris flying into the crowd. As we say, the toll so far is 96 treated at 3 area hospitals. Some had estimated the injuries could have occurred to as many as 200 people. We have 1 confirmed death. We do not know if this was a bomb. There is heavy speculation that it may have been, but we have heard nothing official that this was a bomb, but evidence seems to be pointing from eyewitnesses and others to the presence of some sort of explosive device.
As a matter of fact, 1 television cameraman said that police had asked the news crews to move about 5 minutes before the explosion ripped through the park. His name is Mark Fields. He says police were concerned about a suspicious-looking package. Now, the cameraman even took some videotape of the bag. The bag, he said, had been left under a bench at the base of the lighting tower where the explosion occurred just a few moments later. The concert was going on in the park when the explosion happened. Again, right now, they are going through the park. There were backpacks left when people started running from the site. They are checking to make sure there are no other such devices around. And as we've told you, again, 96 people we know of are being treated at 3 hospitals, 31 at Grady, and this is the light tower where the explosion occurred. Our reporters earlier on the scene said that each and every person they talked to who was near that said that they could smell a sulfur smell. And as one man even described it as having been in warfare and that he knew it was that kind of smell. And he talked about the shrapnel, and he was sure that it was a bomb. As yet, we have had no official confirmation that it was, but it appears from everything we've heard that it is possibly a bomb. Now, the other thing that has not occurred, who is responsible if it was put there, and why have they not claimed responsibility as yet?
Well, as we have pointed out, it would be very easy to bring something into this park in a bag, in a backpack, because the security was there to protect people. but nothing like the Olympic venues where every single individual coming in was checked and monitored and searched if necessary. The Centennial Park was not that kind of place. It was an open festival, and so it would have been so easy. And there's only so much security people can do to protect a venue like that, and I'm sure they were hoping against hope that something like this would not occur, but indeed it has occurred, and we don't know, in fact, at this point, if in fact it was a bomb, and certainly don't know who was responsible if it was a bomb. Mark Winnie has been out and about. His beat during this Olympics is security, and Mark has new information for us. Mark.
Well, John, you're looking at the scene inside the Olympic Stadium venue. Now, a law enforcement official has confirmed to us that they are doing a security sweep. A security sweep is underway inside Olympic Stadium as of just a short while ago. Now, I have been told there is a suspicious package inside the venue, a suspicious package. Now, that is not a confirmed explosive device. After an incident like has taken place at Centennial Park, we would expect there to be a lot of suspicious packages, but we have been told there is a suspicious package, or was as of a short while ago, inside the Olympic Stadium, that they are doing a security sweep of the place. Again, that is also something that we would expect to take place. We reported earlier that we have confirmed information indicating that there was the belief that the item that exploded had been identified as a suspicious package prior to the incident occurring in Centennial Park, and that police were moving people away when the incident happened, is the impression we get. We'll try to stay on top of the situation here at Olympic Stadium. For now, this is Mark Winnie reporting live for Channel 2 Action News.
Mark, before you go, earlier this week you had reported on different parts of the security. For instance, last night you had told us about the special helicopter. Do you see them in force tonight?
As a matter of fact, we can hear a chopper over us now. We've seen a number of searchlights in the air. Given the air restrictions in place down here, I'd say it's a good bet that those are law enforcement or National Guard helicopters, either assisting with the security sweep operations, I would imagine, or seeing what else they might see. We have noticed a number of helicopters, at least one, at least over the Olympic Stadium. In fact, if Sharon Monroe can pan over toward the Olympic flame, you'll see the bright spotlight. That looks like one of the spotlights that would be on the front of the specially equipped raid helicopters the National Guard has, which also has infrared night-seeing equipment on board. Of course, we can't see well enough to confirm that that's what that is, but they, I know at least one of those choppers is equipped with a very powerful spotlight, which this certainly appears to be. We're going to try to keep on top of the situation here and be back to you as soon as we have new information.
Thank you, Mark.
Obviously, all the stops are being pulled out in terms of security, and the remaining question is, what will the impact be on the Olympics? It has to have impact, but the games are going to continue. Bob Brennan of ACOG says the games will continue, and they will, although, as we pointed out, certainly under heightened security.
Now, if you think back to the reports that we've done this week, just yesterday on Friday, we were reporting that Olympic security said everything had been going fine, except for the one major thing had been the man who entered the opening ceremonies with a gun and was arrested, dressed as a security guard, but that had been the only major problem. But the one thing that they said, it seemed that they had had between 25 and 35 every day bomb threats, where someone would see a package out and say that needs to be checked. So they were constantly checking these suspicious packages. And tonight, that was the good thing, that they immediately saw this package and started moving people back. Now, we do have home video of the explosion. It was shot by a Robert G. We want you to take a look at it so you can see what it was like at that moment when the explosion occurred. People were in the park for a concert. Now, many people at first thought it was just part of the performance, because in rock and roll these days, that happens. You can see the smoke rising, and all of a sudden, people start to realize it was not part of the act. Now, we are told that certain security people were hurt because they were near that. They were near the point of the explosion. 4 Georgia State Patrolmen and 2 DEA officers were assuming they were investigating because some people had been asked to move away from that area because of the suspicious package. Jeff Dorr, our reporter, is now at Centennial Park to bring us an update. Jeff.
Actually, Monica, we're at the closest security checkpoint we could get to from Centennial Olympic Park. We're on Marietta Street at Jones. This is where they're stopping people from going through. However, a little bit earlier, we had a camera crew that was able to talk with people who were in Centennial Olympic Park at the time of the explosion. One man at the scene told us that shortly after it happened, that he picked up a piece of debris that he described as a piece of warm shrapnel about the size of a small slice of pie. Other people told us that there was music, there was dancing, there was festivity until this happened, and as one woman said, it changed everything. Here's what some of the people had to say.
It sounded like a cannon, a big, big cannon. And everybody kept saying it was a transformer, and you knew it was. And the lights were still on.
I saw flames. I heard a big boom. I seen people running, blood on them. I didn't know if it was their blood or somebody else's blood.
And you could smell gunpowder. I'll say 400 yards away that I was.
What was the scene like? What were people doing?
Somebody ran from down there and said there's a bomb down there, back up, and the people pretty much moved.
What was going on in the park at that time? Was it a joyous celebration?
Music, people dancing, people enjoying themselves, having fun, enjoying the Olympics, enjoying the music.
There was a very bad head wound, I know, and there was also somebody cut in the chest that I know was hit by shrapnel. It came out of the swatch across from where Fat Tuesdays is set up on the other side of the street, and the debris hit the people that were walking in that area.
I mean, it was just panicky and everything.
What was your hurt?
Yeah, I seen people coming down. A guy had a cut from about his belly button to here. He was trying to get to an ambulance.
I know this one guy.
He was sitting there yelling. Yeah, I was very scared. I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was just a practical joke. Then when I saw people running with blood, I mean, I saw somebody jerk back and fall on the ground.
That was very much the same reaction from a lot of people in there. You know, there was a band playing on the stage at the time. A lot of people who heard the explosion but didn't actually see it happen, their first reaction was think, oh, it was some kind of pyrotechnics with the entertainment going on. And of course, everybody changed their opinion of that very quickly and realized the seriousness of this situation. This has been, in Centennial Olympic Park, a scene of just great joy, celebration, huge crowds of people doing nothing but simply enjoying the entire atmosphere of being in Atlanta and being at the Olympics. The atmosphere, I'm sure, in the morning is going to be entirely different, and as the sun comes up and as the park opens and people start coming down here for the events in the morning, we will see just how this has affected the entire mood of what has been going on here this week and into next. We're live in Northwest Atlanta. Jeff Dorr, Channel 2 Action News.
Jeff, thank you very much. ACOG spokesman tonight is saying this was the worst fear of ACOG, that something like this would happen. The FBI is saying tonight they do believe the blast was caused by an explosive device. This would make it the worst episode in the Olympics since the 1972 Munich disaster, in which 11 Israeli athletes were killed. We know of 1 confirmed death, 96 injured. The toll may go higher. Warren Savage is standing by at Piedmont Hospital, where some of the injured were taken. Most of the injuries at Piedmont were minor, but Warren, what can you tell us?
Right now they are treating 20 people here, John, and most of, as you said, most of the injuries are minor. Most of them are dealing with shrapnel. Right now they're telling us that, of course, they aren't sure if they're expecting more. But just moments ago, I spoke with 2 women. One woman who was treated here, she was hit by shrapnel. She was just a few feet away from the blast. She describes what she heard and what she saw.
I heard anything that loud before. I mean, my ears were...
At about 4:30 Eastern time, which is in about 5 minutes, but all of the press is still being detained outside, so if they're going to have a press conference, it's going to be much later than that. Now, Roger O'Neill has been working the telephone here. He has some brand new information, and Roger, pass on what you have.
Well, the information we're getting, Jim and Tom, is that most of the injuries appear to be relatively minor. That is good news. Secondly, we're hearing again that they are operating under the assumption that it was a pipe bomb that went off. We are hearing from sources inside of the command center that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is in charge of this operation right now. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, ATF, the federal agents, the experts in this kind of sort of stuff, are on scene with several vans and several truckloads of agents, and they are beginning that investigation. We have not heard yet that the FBI has taken control of the investigation, but one would assume that would happen fairly soon.
Roger, familiar with these type of cases, having reported on them in the past. What will be the procedure? How long will it take to determine? And you also had some inkling from your security sources that something like this was prevalent.
Well, if it's a pipe bomb, the shrapnel, which we've heard injured a number of people, that would be fairly easy to determine. As soon as those folks get to the hospital and the surgeons and the doctors begin to treat those people, they'll see that kind of shrapnel. And they'll be able to tell fairly quickly whether it was a pipe bomb or not. Certainly, there will be some pieces of evidence around where if it was a pipe bomb that went off, would be around there. This, we are told, Tom, took place at a pole which was holding some of the projection equipment and light equipment for these shows that was going on. And around that pole was a security
That, what you just heard, was not a problem. That was a police barricade. All the barricades just fell off, so that loud sound you just heard was nothing to be alarmed about, just the police dropping some fencing. Go ahead, Roger.
Around that pole where they believe the pipe bomb was, there was a secure area of 10 or 15 feet so that there weren't a lot of people around that. That's the latest information we're getting right now.
As we await Tom to go inside to the ACOG press conference along with the FBI and so forth, we'll be standing outside here. John Frankel is here, Roger O'Neill. We'll be back to you when we have some more information.
All right,
Tom?
Thanks very much, Jim Gray and Roger O'Neill and John Frankel from NBC Sports and NBC News. It does appear that news conference will be delayed. I'm hearing now from Washington that the FBI does not want to say anything publicly until it furthers its investigation as to the nature of this explosion. We've heard from federal authorities that it was an explosive device. The FBI will not say publicly yet, however, that it was a bomb, and I cannot imagine that either the Olympic officials or city officials want to go public until they know some more from the FBI. Our hope and guess is that it's all being carefully coordinated. Dave Statter of WXIA is at Atlanta Police Headquarters now. Dave?
Tom, we have also been working the telephones, much as Roger has, trying to get some information from law enforcement sources close to this investigation. One thing that we have learned, which was mentioned briefly earlier, is that there is a tape recording that was made at the 911 dispatch center of a call that came in. The exact timing of the call is not known at this time, but federal investigators are trying to get a hold of this tape recording and listen to it. It makes reference to an explosion or a bomb. They want to hear exactly what was said on that tape recording that came into the 911 center, apparently a crucial piece of evidence they want to hear. Again, the exact timing of that is not known. It is believed it came in before the explosion occurred, but that is not really clear at this time. Tom?
All right, thanks, Dave Statter. When do you think that we may be able to hear more from that 911 tape, Dave?
Well, we understand that there was immediate procedure going on, immediate access trying to be obtained of that tape from the 911 center, and then we understand that the Atlanta police were trying to get it into the hands of federal authorities, so they should have it very soon. That was being worked on just within the last half hour.
And Dave, you've been covering the city of Atlanta all this week. Have they had a number of those kinds of calls that they've had to check out?
Well, obviously there have been bags left here and there that need to be checked out. There have been a number of situations since this explosion has occurred where the bomb squads have been called in to check suspicious packages. Again, we've also heard reports of possibly other devices being found this morning. None of that has been officially confirmed by federal authorities, but they are looking into that.
Well, let me be clear about the 911 tape based on what you've been able to learn. It was that there was some kind of a warning, not that there was a suspicious package, right?
Well, that's a good question at this point, Tom. They are going to listen to the tape. The early understanding is that it may have come in before the bomb exploded, indicating a warning, but there's also the possibility that it came in immediately after. Our sources at this point are not clear on that, and they're waiting to hear from what they hear from their agents that are listening to the tape.
All right, thanks very much. Dave Statter, who is live at the Atlanta Police Headquarters. There is a tape from 911 either right before or right after the explosion, and federal authorities, we're told, are examining that. A news conference was scheduled for right now. Let's go to Beth Galvin now, who is at Georgia Baptist Hospital. It's one of the hospitals not too far from here where a lot of the walking...
Right about now, we have the privilege of working with this.
Right at the conclusion of a song by Jack Mack and the Heart Attack, which has been playing there all week long. that explosion occurred. Now, a record producer with a band, an NBC cameraman on a tower, and a KNBC cameraman working on the ground all said that they were told by security personnel that there had been a bomb threat. People were beginning to be cleared back from the area when the explosion occurred, but they couldn't clear everyone out. And obviously...
There you can see the sparks and the blue smoke that was described by many eyewitnesses. The blast caught so many people by surprise that they didn't see the explosion itself. They didn't see the sparks flying from near the base of that tower there. But they did see the blue smoke afterwards, and that's perhaps what led to so much confusion in terms of people wondering whether, again, this was just part of the act, as we've seen at so many rock concerts over the years. But once word trickled through the crowd and security officials went through the crowd telling people to get down or get out of the way, there again you see the explosion, a big orange flash followed by the blue smoke there, and obviously pieces of explosion, pieces of shrapnel actually being blown through the crowd. We also have some descriptions to bring you now from eyewitnesses who were in the immediate vicinity when this bomb exploded just over 3 hours ago.
Now, earlier we had heard from some of them that on their radio they had heard information that 2 more explosive devices had been found inside the park. We have nothing more to add to that other than the fact that now we've heard from 2 different police officers that on their radios they were hearing this kind of report, that they had brought in additional bomb squads and that they are indeed pursuing this lead. So again, right now what I can tell you is that they are widening the cordon. The perimeter around the park now is going to be 2 or 3 blocks from what we can tell, and that everyone in the immediate area is supposed to leave.
Bonnie, we can assume the area is crawling with security people, bomb squad people, and so forth.
It is. If we could try to show you some, I don't know if we can pan around over to here. If not, up and down the street. In fact, we can show you some over here. Up and down the street, there are some police officers. We've seen groups of 15, of 20 coming in. They spread out immediately. This is an enormous park, an enormous area to cover. There are officers searching garbage cans. They're searching underneath vehicles. They're going into different trailers that we see behind us. But this is a huge area. They've got their hands full. You can see even officers in uniform, officers out of uniform, people who are on duty, people who are off duty who have rushed down here to this site. So the latest that we can tell you again is that we're told that police officials here have gotten the word that there are 2 more explosive devices at the park. We cannot confirm that further than that, other than to tell you that now they are telling everyone within even a block of the park or block of the explosion to leave. And even the security officials here at Nike have indeed left the premises. Back to you.
All right, Bonnie Anderson, if they're asking you to leave, we don't want to delay you any longer because clearly they are concerned, and that means they're continuing their search. As you just said, they're widening the search. They are looking not only in garbage cans, but one assumes in every nook and cranny that they can get a light on at this hour of the night. It's now 20 minutes till 5 Eastern Time, still dark here in the city of Atlanta. Joining us now on the telephone is Mark Smith. He was running audio, was an audio technician, presumably, for the group Jack, Mac, and the Heart Attack. This is the rock group that was playing at the time this bomb went off. It's been identified as a bomb by authorities here in Atlanta. Mark, can you tell us exactly what was going on just before the bomb exploded? And were you part of the group, I guess, or the individual who heard or who found the bag with the explosive device in it?
You can hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Mark.
First of all, I'd like to set the record straight. I'm not the person who discovered the package. The person who discovered the package was Richard, our security guard at the Mix Tower. Okay? I did not discover it, so that's a false report, and I'd like to set the record straight there. And Richard did a great job. He discovered an unattended package right by our Mix Tower. He informed the police, and the police immediately came over to respond to his request on the radio, and they immediately started clearing the area, and they cleared our Mix Tower, and they said, we believe there's a questionable device here, and we would like you all to leave the Mix Tower. And we said, fine, security's going to tell us to leave, we're out of here. And so we had left the Mix Tower. We were staying close because in case someone needed to make an announcement to close the park or whatever, I'm the guy who can make that announcement. And I was 50 feet away, I was at the southwest corner of the Mix Tower. The bomb exploded on the northeast corner. So I didn't get any shrapnel, but I saw the cop right in front of me take a huge piece of shrapnel, and there was an NBC, 2 guys on a crew sitting there pulling their camera gear away, and there was another erroneous report. There was a black gentleman on your show. He said he was 25 feet away. Swatch is 100 feet away minimum, and I'd just like to set some of the records straight. I was right there, and I saw the whole thing. I was about 50 feet away, which was as close as anybody was at that point, except for the one police officer who was probably about 30 feet away. He was the closest person to the explosion.
All right, Mark, we appreciate your setting the record straight. We know that at a time like this there's a lot of confusion because people are there and there's chaos and it's not clear what happened, and people can have just the wrong memory about exactly where they were. Right. But let me get this straight. You were told your security guard, Richard, what's his name? Richard,
I don't know his last name, but he's employed by AT&T as our security guard to watch the Mix Tower.
And so he spotted can you describe what it was? Did you see what he saw?
No, he said he found like a knapsack or a nylon or a leather bag out in front that was unattended, and he didn't like the way it looked, and he immediately informed the police. And the police didn't like the way that it looked, and they started moving everybody away from the area. And all I can say is that Richard, the security guy, and the police did an incredible job, thank God, of moving people away and having the complete sense of their jobs to do the right thing.
It certainly sounds like they did, because if those people hadn't been moved away, it sounds as if the casualties would have been a lot worse.
That's true. Another thing I'd like to set the record straight on, everybody goes, there was this huge explosion. Now, in the entertainment business, we have, in a lot of shows, what's called a concussion mortar, much like what you launch a fireworks with. And it's kind of a normal part of some shows. That's why you hear some people correctly reporting that they didn't think that it was that big of a boom because they thought it was part of the show, like a pyrotechnic effect. And that is, in fact, correct. I mean, even from 50 feet away, it wasn't that big. The concussion was bigger than the bang.
Now, you were on the southwest side of
I was on the southwest corner of the Mix Tower.
How long, Mark, after the time your security guard, Richard, identified this and called police, how long was a span of time, would you say, from when he spotted this suspicious, you say, knapsack or nylon bag until the explosion occurred?
I would say not even 5 minutes. I mean, he spotted it, called the cops. They took us off the riser. That took maybe a minute and a half, and we were walking around, and we were staying in the vicinity close, about 50 feet, as I say, in case someone needed to make an announcement when it went off. So it took him about a minute and a half or 2 minutes to clear us out, and then 3 minutes later it went off.
And where was the device exactly? Did he say?
The device was on the northeast corner of the Mix Tower, on the ground.
On the ground, lying out in the open? Lying out in the open, presumably, or did he say?
Yeah, and that's why he was suspicious of it, because it was unattended.
Now, you say after the explosion, you saw that a policeman was the closest person.
Oh, he got hit bad. He got hit bad, and I had a towel. This other guy had a towel, and he went and threw a towel on the cop's head, the policeman's head, and I was drinking water at the time, you know, the typical crystal water that everybody has for the Olympics here, and went over and poured it on the towel for him, just to wash some of the blood away.
Could you see how badly the policeman was injured?
He looked bad. He wasn't even moving. He was face down and not even moving.
And you said there was an NBC camera crew or sound crew?
Yeah, there was an NBC. There were two guys. I mean, NBC nightly does, Fritz Coleman does the weather right there. Right in front of the tower, I mean, is the NBC hookup for all the weathermen who come and do their, remote shots from right in front of the tower there. And these two guys were pulling their equipment away because the police said, pull your equipment away from here. There's a package over there, and we want all this stuff out of here.
So they were in the vicinity as well?
Oh, they were right there. I mean, I think I even saw him. I'm pretty sure he was rolling his camera. I'm sure he has pictures of the package.
So
the policeman, we were out before the policeman told the NBC guys. And the NBC guy, when they told him to move their stuff, the guy rolled film.
And was that camera crew hurt, as far as you could tell?
One of the guys might have gotten hurt. I mean, it was, the thing was, I looked around and there were pockets of people crouching over people. I would say I only saw immediate vicinity, 10 pockets of people, crouched over people who had been hurt by what apparently now is shrapnel. I mean, I didn't get hit by any shrapnel, thank God.
Tell us when the explosion, we're now looking at pictures that were taken, obviously in the immediate aftermath of this.
Well, I'm looking at the same picture here, and that looks like it's out on Techwood. I mean, shrapnel could have gone out there. I mean, that would have been.
We're not successful at getting all the bystanders that were in Olympic Park to watch a concert earlier this morning. We are now going to join our affiliate, our ABC affiliate in Atlanta, WSB. They're continuing live coverage.
Quickly moved in. People were slow to move out because they really weren't sure just what had happened. Again, you see the baby carriages. We keep telling you that this was the area where even if you didn't have a ticket to any event, this is where you could come and be part of the event. There were free concerts here of name stars like Faith Hill, who appeared earlier this week. CeCe Winans appeared earlier in the park free of charge. So this was where people came to really feel the Olympic spirit. There are the 5 rings and the fountains there, and the children were constantly running through the fountains even at 2 a.m. because it was a party atmosphere. This is where you would come in between competitions. It's where you could even watch the opening ceremonies on a large screen the first night of the Olympics. This was kind of the People's Park. And then this is the aftermath of the explosion. Some 25 ambulances were lined up by the street. Pretty soon, the fire department. It was just immediate reaction to what had happened in the park. That's one thing we can say. We've heard over and over again that the response by emergency vehicles was immediate, and that people...
What appears to be some of the federal agents that have been here entering the Olympic Stadium area. Just a short while ago, we saw that large contingent of National Guard troops, what we believe to be National Guard troops that arrived moving out. Occasionally, you can see people walking back and forth across that walkway in the stadium. We saw a guy with a flashlight. We believe, we were told earlier, security sweep was underway. Something that I think we should talk about in all this. Photographer Sharon Monroe and I have been covering Olympic security for Channel 2 for the last 2 or 3 weeks. One story we did a short while ago was on the bomb sanitization process. About 2,000 National Guard troops, if I recall, trained to inspect cars, to scrutinize vehicles, to make sure there are not explosives on board.
All by this is Jimmy Pedro, who on July 24th won a bronze medal in judo. First of all, congratulations on your medal.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask you, does this in any way temper your enthusiasm over your accomplishment here at the Olympics?
I don't think, not at all. I've been preparing my whole life for this one event, and I had my family, friends here to see me win the medal, and it's just a very, very special thing. It's a dream come true for me to win a medal after 19 years of preparation. And people are here to see the Olympics and see athletes compete. All the athletes have given their lives to their sport, and they're here to do what they came to do, regardless of what happens.
Have you been staying at the Olympic Village?
Yes.
All right, and I assume you were there overnight. And how did you first become aware of the bombing?
Actually, last night I spent the night at a condominium with my family and friends. So I heard this morning when I woke up on the news. Devastated. I can't believe that something like that would happen at an Olympic Games. It's a time of celebration, a time to watch athletes compete, and it was shocking to hear.
And athletes you have spoken to, have any of them at all considered the possibility of leaving town or anything like that? Did it occur to you immediately, geez, I want to get out of town or anything like that?
Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, athletes are very focused, and they have given a major part of their lives for their sport, and they're here to do one thing, and that's to compete. And I don't think that it would affect anybody's ability to compete or even consider leaving. A lot of us have gone through a lot to get here today.
Now, the security at the venues, we've all noticed it being very tight. Given what happened last night, are you in any way fearful for your fellow athletes as they continue to compete in these games?
I don't think so. I think that the security measures and our security team here in the States has been exceptionally tight, and compared to Barcelona, I think that they're doing an excellent job. We have to go through a lot of different screenings and a lot of different metal detectors and bag searches and stuff like that, and I feel very protective and safe at the Village as well as at the venues. It's just around town that it's difficult.
So you're going to be staying in town through the closing ceremonies, is that correct?
I plan to be here until the end of the games, August 5th. And enjoy every bit of it.
You know, they were talking a few moments ago, listening to A.D. Frazier with the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games, and talking about this electric spirit which exists on the streets of Atlanta right now. First of all, have you been witness to that, and do you think that this will cast a pall over that at all?
I think that, people are going to be saddened by the event, and it's going to affect all of us a little bit. However, the excitement is tremendous, and people have come and spent a lot of money to be here, and although it's tragic that happened, they're still going to be wanting to see the Olympics. It only comes around once every 4 years, and this is once in a century time.
Of course, there are a lot of distractions during any Olympics for an athlete as it stands. The media being one of them, and just the food, the party atmosphere. To the extent that this adds another distraction, will it somehow, perhaps we won't notice it, will it affect the performances at all?
I don't think so. If anything, people are going to feed off it. Usually an athlete can take a negative situation and turn it into something positive, or to take away from that event and try to win as a result of it, and show everybody that that's what we're here for, the Olympic Games.
Does this act of terrorism make you angry?
Definitely so, definitely. I feel that it's an act of cowardice, and that whoever did it is just an evil person that really has no right being associated with this event. It is terrible.
All right, Olympic bronze medalist Jimmy Pedro, we congratulate you on your accomplishments here in Atlanta, and we wish you well in all your endeavors.
Thank you very much.
We're going to continue our coverage of the Olympic Park bombing. Right now we're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a few moments.
And I was bleeding. I was in so much pain that I couldn't run, but Donna helped me. Donna helped me because the guy said get on the ground, but we were so scared. We didn't know if another bomb would go off or whatever it was would happen again.
And did you see anybody in worse condition than you were?
Yeah, here at the hospital, yeah. I saw a guy, his hand looked like like something went through it. Blood was everywhere. His hand was really bad.
We were just sitting there watching the concert, like that there, and we just thought it was, was part of the sound effects. And then when we saw everybody just running and falling, we knew that something had happened. But the explosion was so loud.
The bang, it was from 1 meter like this, from 100. It was all red. And it was, and then afterwards, after the things came down, also some powder fell in my eyes, and it was 5 minutes later.
There's smoke, and some people froze, and some people panicked and ran. A few people got hurt, trampled. I heard some girl have blood down her face, whatever, but I've heard another report. This other lady, she talked to her, she said the people spread all over the place.
What did you do when it happened?
Well, I gathered my kids up and stayed away from trash cans, you know?
Well, I was just watching the music, admiring the scenery, the big screen TVs and so forth, and there was an explosion that kind of sounded like, you know, maybe a fireworks explosion, but it was about 30 feet to the right of me, and I realized that people were falling down around me. I did turn around to think it's time to go, and that's when I found someone laying in front of me. And I had to help him and hold his hand. He was a nice young gentleman, about 22 or 23, and he had a big slash in his stomach as well as like a bullet hole looking thing above it.
There was a bomb, and I want to go home, and I can't get out of here. And I'm scared, Donald. I want to come home.
There was another unfortunate incident at these Centennial Games a week ago. Someone dressed in a security guard's uniform carrying a loaded gun with 11 rounds managed to make his way past security and into Olympic Stadium where the president was. However, even though this was another unfortunate breach of the security perimeter, the city of Atlanta was more than prepared to respond to this unfortunate incident. That was obvious by the number of emergency apparatus that were on scene, the emergency medical technicians who rushed to treat the injured so quickly. And we talked a little earlier today with one of the first people on the scene.
Body, people down with varying degrees of injuries from very minor to life-threatening, including one that was dead on the scene. She was beyond hope. There was nothing we could do for her. After I got to the park, on the way to the park, after hearing the bomb blast, I had called for the first alarm assignment, got it en route before I even got to the park. Once I got into the park, I did a quick survey of the local park area. Estimated we have between 75 and 100 people down.
Well, we've seen a couple of long bone fractures. We've seen a femur fracture and a tibia fracture. We're going to be taking to the operating room tonight. I mean, on a fairly non-emergent basis, you know, probably in the next hour or two.
How many patients have you seen?
We've seen about 4 or 5 patients so far. But like I said, we only see patients if they've already been seen and evaluated, and then we see them.
Any sense of how many in the emergency room? How many are being treated in the emergency room, or how many have been brought in the last hour or so?
Maybe a couple of dozen. Yeah,
a couple of dozen.
We've seen about 20 people being treated, but the injuries range from very minor to serious.
What is
it, shrapnel?
Any fatalities?
We've seen a lot of shrapnel injury, yeah. But like I said, we're not seeing everyone. We're just seeing a few people.
Addressed the nation, expressing his sorrow over the act here in Atlanta. We'll have more on that when we return. Stay with us.
Put your umbrella on the table, sir. Put your umbrella on the table, sir. Put your umbrella on the table. Thank you. On the table. Step right through it, please. Need that. Thank you.
We're continuing our coverage of the Olympic Park bombing, but first let's check some other news. Another story which has been dominating had occurred 1:20 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's go now to CNN's Jill Doherty at the White House. Jill?
Well, Miles, President Clinton is going to continue with his original plan, which is going out to Camp David, the presidential retreat. He's going out there a little bit later, obviously, than expected, but should be leaving shortly after noon in just a few minutes. The departure was delayed as the president was on the telephone this morning in a series of conference calls, both with FBI officials, with investigators, Olympic officials, and others, also members of Congress, getting updates constantly on the situation, being informed by his chief of staff, Leon Panetta, and also, we are told, briefing members of Congress on what he knows. He also did contact Bob Dole and filled him in on what he knows so far. This morning, the president came into the briefing room to make a statement on the bombing, calling it an act of terror aimed at innocent people. He expressed his condolences to the families and pledged that the government and law enforcement will track down the perpetrators. Now, Press Secretary Mike McCurry has been providing some updates this morning. He was asked about a comment purportedly made by the vice president, that the vice president had reportedly made some comments that security was not up to snuff, it was not sufficient. McCurry said that that is not correct. The vice president did not make those comments, and that the White House continues to insist that security at the Olympics, although the world is not risk-free, has been about as tight as it possibly could be, and in fact has been tighter than at any other Olympics. The president, interestingly enough, in his comments, did say that security officials had been more concerned about the site where this bombing took place more than any other site at the Olympics, that it was an open area, open to people walking around, not half as secure as the areas where the Olympic athletes are competing. And there was some concern that that was perhaps a vulnerable area. He said they are now looking at perhaps tightening up security at that venue. The president will be out at Camp David, and he will be keeping apprised of what is happening. His chief of staff will be calling. He'll be getting regular updates on the situation. We are told that the First Lady, Hillary Rodham Clinton, had been originally scheduled to go next week, the middle of next week, tentatively to the Olympics, going back. Also, the Vice President is scheduled to go to the closing ceremonies at the Olympics, but both of those things are on hold pending a discussion with security officials and law enforcement to make sure that that is a proper thing for them to do at that time. Back to you, Miles.
Jill, in those remarks, the president had some personal comments to offer. His daughter Chelsea has been attending some of the events, and he noted that she has spent some time in that park. Also, given the fact that he's just been here, it sort of must strike him in a personal way as well, huh?
Yes, he did say that. In fact, he has mentioned that he was up quite a bit of the night watching TV, listening to reports and getting reports, and he said he thought about Chelsea, who had been down in Atlanta for a few days at the games, thought about her, thought about parents who might be concerned about what happened to their children. Chelsea had been in that location. That's an area where there are a lot of tourist stands also, and she is an avid pin collector from the Olympics and had been trading pins. He mentioned that, but of course she was not there when the attack happened, and the president said, although that was on his mind.
All right. Thank you very much, Jill. Jill Doherty at the White House. And stand by. We'll be coming back to you later, I'm sure. The big question remains, how many people will be showing up to events? One of the issues today is the weather. It has been raining here in Atlanta. It may be difficult to determine to what extent people have been scared by this terrorist attack which occurred here in Atlanta, the bombing which killed 2 people, injuring 110. The main event today is track and field. 80,000 people are expected to fill the Olympic Stadium. That's where we find CNN's national correspondent Bonnie Anderson. Bonnie?
Well, there are some empty seats in the Olympic Stadium behind us. No telling whether it's the weather or the attack this morning. What I can tell you, though, is that people began arriving here at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They were forced to stand in line at the different entrances, some for well over an hour. In fact, there was a delay of about a half hour before people were allowed into the stadium, into the entire perimeter area. Police were carefully checking the bags, checking backpacks, and making every single spectator go through the metal detectors. People we talked to, though, said that they were determined to see the Olympics.
I think you're going to have this type of thing, even scares, even if the bomb doesn't actually go off, you're going to have the scare. But they're still going to come. Just like me.
I'm just not going to let it get me down, and I don't think it should, should let it get the games down. We should expect things like this, but we try to prevent them.
Well, despite those high spirits, though, we have spoken with some people who were very visibly upset. One woman very close to tears saying it's a shame, it's a shame. Another person, a father, saying that his daughter intended to come with him today, but when she heard about the incident at Centennial Park, she decided she was going to stay home. Security here has been beefed up. We can see on virtually every corner mounted police officers, law enforcement officials from Atlanta police, as well as state and federal agencies. They are here in addition to what had already been planned. Each venue has its own bomb squad, bomb team. We can only imagine that those have been beefed up, given that there are more than 2,000 personnel here in town who, for the Olympics, who are trained in bomb detection. So far, though, spectators continue to arrive despite the bombing, despite the weather, telling us, for the most part, that they will not let anything dampen their Olympic spirit. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Bonnie. CNN's Bonnie Anderson in front of an Olympic stadium where the Olympic flag's flying at half-staff behind her, but the flame still burns and the events are underway. The games do go on despite the terrorist attack. CNN's continuing coverage of the bomb which has shaken the Olympics will continue after a short break. Stay with us.
Just after the bomb went off, many of you will remember this area from last weekend. This was the place
where those beautiful balloons in the 5 Olympic colors were set off and went off into the sky. It's really a lovely area that has been created and designed for the Olympic Games here. The investigation at this point, we know this much, that the FBI has traced the phone booth where the call to 911 came for. Obviously, technicians are going over that entire area, looking for fingerprints and so on, and that's where the investigation stands as we wait now for this news conference by the FBI. Let's go back to Atlanta now and John Roberts. John?
All right, Bob, we get a little more insight into the decision-making process that led to the IOC firmly stating that the games would continue as they did in 1972 after the Munich massacre. Kevin Gosper, who is the IOC member for Australia, also a member of the executive board, says that they first started meeting about 2:30 this morning, a little more than an hour after the blast went off, and by about 6 o'clock in the morning they had firmly decided that yes, the games were going to continue, and the big reason for that was that they said that they didn't want to give the attack more credence than it deserved. But certainly this is an attack that is going to weigh very heavily on the minds of many people, and Mark Phillips, perhaps an American athlete, is one of the people whose minds it will weigh most heavily upon.
Well, indeed, and it's, again, we've been talking about irony all morning. This bomb happened, Bob, you mentioned before that this was outside of rock concerts. This was actually right at the rock concerts. It's an open air amphitheater kind of situation with a big open stage into which all these people were crowded. The bomb was placed at the base of the tower from which they controlled the audio and lights and the sorts of things that you have at these sorts of concerts. At the time, we heard from the eyewitnesses there at the time that the warning came in. They evacuated the tower and started moving people away from it, which is when the bomb went off. It was also in that area, which they call the AT&T Global Village, Communication Village, where AT&T has its big exhibit in the park that foreign broadcasters transmit from. And as it happens, there was an interview underway with American swimmer Janet Evans by the German ARD network. It's the most dramatic bit of videotape that has come out of this bombing, and we're going to look at it again now.
Club. It didn't work out because there was big crowds of people around you, big crowds around Francisca, and you couldn't meet. This was the problem.
Yeah, it kind of was like she has so many people bothering her all the time. I didn't want to be another person.
And nobody's bothering you, right?
Well.
Get out there. Get out there. To the mark.
We've seen that tape now go by about 10 or 15 times as we've been up all night covering this thing, and it amazes us each time. You can actually see the flash of the explosion as it happens. Bob, you had mentioned also earlier that this was a park that was created for the games, but it was a park that was designed to be one of the lasting legacies of the games for the city of Atlanta in an area of town that was not particularly attractive or economically productive beforehand. It was raised, this whole park, of which there is great civic pride associated. Now, of course, the memory of what happened there will be something other than what the city fathers of Atlanta had intended.
I must say, I agree with you about watching that tape. I too have seen it about 10 times now, and I jump every time that explosion occurs. We are waiting for a briefing by the FBI in Atlanta. We expect that momentarily. I'm looking at a monitor now where we can already see the reporters and cameramen gathering in the room. We only await the arrival of the FBI spokesman. We hope to get more information about all this at that briefing. Certainly we'll get the very latest that officials have to tell us. President Clinton, many of you were with us through the morning, went on television about 10 o'clock Eastern time. He was notified immediately after the blast occurred, was up much of the night, and at his briefing talked about how the Olympic Games must go on. He said that there is no way that we can allow terrorists to win. He called it an evil act of terrorism. He also called it an act of cowardice that stands in sharp contrast to the courage of the Olympic athletes. We want to give you a portion of that tape right now. President
We will spare no effort to find out who was responsible for this murderous act. We will track them down. We will bring them to justice. We will see that they are punished. In the meanwhile, we are all agreed the games will go on. We will take every necessary step to protect the athletes and those who are attending the games. I know that the people who've worked so hard to put on these Olympics, the people of Atlanta, the thousands and thousands of volunteers, are more determined than ever to see them to a successful conclusion. Already we see the spirit at work this morning. The mayor spoke about the significant numbers of people in the streets in Atlanta. President Samaranch reported to me on the events that are already taking place and said there were large crowds of spectators at them and that the people were clearly determined to go forward and attend the game and follow them. Let me say finally that an act of vicious terror like this is clearly directed at the spirit of our own democracy. It seeks to rip also at the spirit of the Olympics. We are doing everything in our power to prevent these attacks. There's been an enormous effort made to establish security at the sites of all the events. At the park itself, the investigation will continue today, and then there will be additional security measures taken there. But we must not let these attacks stop us from going forward. We cannot let terror win. That is not the American way. The Olympics will continue. The games will go on. The Olympic spirit will prevail. We must be firm in this. We cannot be intimidated by acts of terror. Thank you very much.
Bob Dole, who everyone assumes will be the Republican presidential nominee, joined the president in saying that these perpetrators must be found. He also said, we need to resolve this not as Republicans or Democrats, but as Americans. He, too, called it a cowardly act. Jim Stewart, we were talking as we wait now for the FBI to give us a briefing, and we're told that is coming momentarily. We were talking a minute ago about whether this is to be considered a terrorist act or something else. And I believe you pointed out that that is important because it determines which government agency will in fact take the lead in this investigation.
Oh, I suspect that the FBI will maintain the lead in this investigation and won't give it up, and rightfully so, unless evidence surfaces to otherwise indicate this had nothing to do with terrorism. I think that what we might see here, Bob, is typically they are very careful to give a timeline on events to nail down precisely what they know and when they knew it. They'll probably tell us about the enormous number of resources that they have available to look into what happened. They have 2 explosive centers that were set up in Atlanta specifically to detonate suspicious objects and to check residue to see if a bomb was set off anywhere in the vicinity. They'll probably also do, as they did in the Oklahoma City blast and again recently in the case of the TWA Flight 800 crash, ask for the public's assistance. They are always anxious for people to come forward, and we're told, frankly, that they've been overwhelmed with people offering them information in Atlanta, where witnesses have been very cooperative, as you might expect, and the people who have been interviewed in the hospitals also giving their recollections. It is, frankly, hard in the view of many investigators to believe with that many people around that someone didn't notice somebody leave a satchel of that size in the position that it was left. That specifically drew the attention so quickly of a local policeman there. We're still not sure exactly how that satchel was detonated too. I mean, it's quite conceivable that you had actually a fuse burning inside that thing as opposed to a time delay or a timer that set it off. So they're interviewing those witnesses, and I think they'll tell us about that and ask for the public to come forward if they can and give them even more help. Bob?
Well, another thing that we might get some information on, and I stress just might because no one has made any announcement to this effect, this is the time and the era of the home video camera. There were also many security cameras around this entire area. This may well be on somebody's videotape, either a security camera or some home video, and that too could prove to be a crucial event if indeed that happened. But we may well see on somebody's video camera pictures of the person who put this book satchel or military satchel, whatever you want to call it, near this area, and the one that contained a bomb. Let's go back now to John Roberts and Mark Phillips, who've been manning our coverage down there, manning the post in Atlanta. John?
Bob, it's a fair bet that perhaps somebody somewhere caught something on videotape, if not for the plethora of people who have those little camcorders with them, but perhaps some of the myriad security and surveillance cameras that that are all around, not only the Centennial Olympic Park, but the venues as well. You know, you spoke earlier, and we all spoke earlier, about the drama that's caught on that videotape as the explosion goes off, but the videotape just really can't convey what it was like to really be there and not only hear the sound of the explosion and feel it rattle the windows and vibrate the car that you're driving along in, but then the stark realization that after all of the preparation, all of the practicing, all of the exercises, all of the drills in hope that nothing would happen, that yes, indeed, something did happen. And Mark Phillips, I think this is, and we've said this before, but I think it bears repeating, this will change the tone of the next 8 days.
Well, it's already changed the way these Olympics are operating. The security now is much tighter than it was even although it had been quite tight at the Olympic venues. We keep stressing the distinction between the actual places where Olympic events are taking place, places where the athletes are training and where they're living. This was not one of them. This was this open parkland that we're now looking at here in the ways that the Olympic security has changed. People are now being subjected to these kinds of searches, apparently all over the town here. We can assume that there will be tighter security, both getting into venues, the Olympic Centennial Park where this explosion took place. The discussion going on now is what kind of security will be required there. Clearly it can't be just the open playground that it has been up until now, not with an event like this having happened. We've already heard that at the rowing venue, this big country venue where the Olympic rowing events are held, they've dispensed with the normal security guards which they had previously, and now there are armed troops with automatic weapons patrolling those grounds. So these are games that are now being carried out under armed guard, quite different from what they were up to and including yesterday.
I'm told now that there is a report on the status of the people who were injured in all this. Mark, let's switch to that. I believe that's a news conference I see in my monitor here.
All 11 of them are stable. They are at Grady Hospital, Georgia Baptist Hospital, and Piedmont Hospital. The hospitals are not yet releasing the names of the people who are in their respective hospitals, and I think that's because they're waiting to notify relatives or next of kin. A sports update while we're here. There were 18 sports scheduled to begin competition prior to noon today. Each of the competitions is underway, except for those being affected by rain delays. At 10:45 a.m., rain was affecting baseball at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, cycling at Stone Mountain Park, hockey at some of the Clark Atlanta fields, and tennis at Stone Mountain. Other sports that are up and running are diving, water polo, athletics, badminton, basketball, canoe kayak, equestrian, handball, rowing, shooting, softball, table tennis, volleyball, both beach and indoor. There are 4 sports scheduled to start competition this afternoon, and pending the weather, should start on time. They're boxing at Alexander Memorial Coliseum at 13:30, football at the, I forget the acronym, Orlando, I believe, and another game at 7:30, an off-site game. Weightlifting will begin at shortly at the Georgia World Congress Center, and yachting is scheduled to begin at 1300 in Savannah. I'll have some copies of this sports update made and have them distributed afterward. Virtually all of the ACOG staff and volunteers scheduled to work today reported to their respective venues and have been performing their duties. Some of the people scheduled to work at Centennial Olympic Park have been deployed elsewhere. Attendance was near capacity at the Olympic Stadium for athletics. The biggest problem there was the rain, although 80% of the crowd stayed for the events. At several of this morning's events, attendance exceeded yesterday. In addition, we continued to sell tickets to upcoming events, and the scalpers were well represented, it says here. $17 handball tickets were going for $75. I'll ask we make a copy of this, or copies of this, and you can pick it up on your way out if you wish to have it.
All right, that was Bob Brennan, who is a member of the Atlanta Organizing Committee. And what he said was that they now believe 111 people were injured. Of course, we know one person who was killed, another person who died of a heart attack. Of the 111 who were injured, we're told only 11 remain in the hospital. Mr. Brennan said all of them, all of those 11, are in stable condition. The other 100 people were treated at the hospital and then released. He also said, reported on the attendance at the various games, that yesterday attendance was very good. Our Mark Phillips tells us that today, however, at some of the venues where the various events are being held, that the attendance seems to be way down, which would seem to me to be what you would expect after an incident like this has happened. All of these venues now, the security is very, very heavy. The FBI said earlier today that the places where the games are being held, where security was already very strict, that those venues would now be sanitized. By that he means they would be searched, bomb-sniffing dogs would be brought in. The same kind of preparations would be made, for example, as are done on a routine basis whenever the President of the United States goes somewhere to speak. You can also see, we have seen pictures. Here is the President and Mrs. Clinton and their daughter Chelsea behind them. She was at the games all week and then returned with her dad. He went down Thursday. She returned to Washington with him. The President said earlier today, because his daughter had been there, the first thing that he thought of when he heard of this report last night is he just hoped that someone else's daughter had not been injured. The President and Ms. Clinton and Chelsea are going to Camp David for the weekend. The President had planned to do that previously. Of course, he's wherever the President goes, there are instant communications. The White House is where the President is, so he will be at Camp David for the remainder of the weekend. John Roberts, who's been in Atlanta all week, is still there, has been there through the night. John?
Action News, Delaware Valley's leading news program, with Cecily Tynan, Phil Andrews, and Rob Jennings.
Saturday night, in the big story in Action News, is the bomb blast that destroyed the calm of this year's Olympic Games. It happened very early this morning in a place called Centennial Park. It was built as a haven for Atlanta's Olympic visitors to enjoy themselves until a pipe bomb in a bag exploded, killing one and injuring over 100 others. Still, the Olympic spirit continued undaunted today. The games went on a schedule with additional security. And then tonight, Atlanta on edge again when a bomb scare threatened a popular tourist spot. Now the details. At 1:25 this morning, the Olympic feeling went from fun to fear as celebration turned to confusion. Thousands of people had gathered at the Centennial Olympic Park for a concert. A band entertaining the crowd had just finished playing a song. The powerful blast could be felt across the park. Olympic swimmer Janet Evans was being interviewed nearby. A pipe bomb packed with nails and screws, custom built for pain, turned the concert into chaos.
It's like a shotgun blast. I turned around, two guys were laying on the ground. It sounded like a gun going off at first, but then it sounded too loud for that. And I kind of realized we looked over and we saw the smoke coming up.
It was a loud noise from out of nowhere. People got to running and people was hollering, "It's a bomb, it's a bomb." Then chaos just broke out.
People were running. They were running away from the park because they're thinking that's where it is and it's only going to get worse. And so we ran away, still looking back, and everybody was just running away.
The response was swift and strong. Police, FBI, and bomb experts converged on the scene in minutes. Streets were cleared so ambulances could reach the wounded. In all, 2 people died. A 44-year-old Georgia woman was killed by the blast, and a Turkish cameraman suffered a heart attack. The questions now are, who did it and why? And investigators believe they will find the answers. Some key clues may be found at a phone bank 2 blocks from the explosion. Federal agents spent this day searching this area. Shortly after 1 this morning, Atlanta police had received a 911 call from here. It came 18 minutes before the blast.
And we have listened to the tapes
is we believe, a white male with an indistinguishable accent.
Minutes after the call, before the warning could be relayed to Olympic officials, a security officer noticed the suspicious bag next to a light tower. The officer summoned the bomb squad, and after examining the bag, they urged everybody to move away.
The tower was covered up with people. It was a grassy hill right there. There was probably 75 or 100 people that we were able to evacuate immediately. Some of them were intoxicated and belligerent, but we still managed to get most of the people out of the way before the explosion occurred.
Officer Steve Blackwell was helping move people back when the bomb went off.
I looked back off to the right. I saw an orange flash. I saw a puff of smoke, heard a bang, and then something picked me up and threw me across the pavement.
He suffered a leg wound and walked with a noticeable limp today. Investigators say they want to talk to 4 young men seen in the area shortly before the blast. They had been acting rowdy and drunk. That is why the security officer was called to that area in the first place. President Clinton is vowing to catch those who committed this, quote, evil act of terror. Mr. Clinton spoke to reporters this morning at the White House. He called the bombing an act of cowardice. The president said that every effort will be made to bring the culprits to justice. He also expressed condolences to the victims and their families, but he stressed that the Olympic Games must go on.
But we must not let these attacks stop us from going forward. We cannot let terror win. That is not the American way. The Olympics will continue. The Games will go on. The Olympic spirit will prevail.
Mr. Clinton and the First family have visited the Games twice, and the president is considering a return visit to show support in the wake of the bombing. Vice President Gore and First Lady Hillary Clinton are supposed to attend the Games again next week, but the White House now says they will go only if security officials give the okay. At the Games today, flags flew at half-staff over the Olympic Village, and the competition opened this morning with a moment of silence to remember the dead and wounded. The tension was obvious. Already, tight security has been beefed up considerably. Every bag is being checked before visitors can go inside. Rental vehicles are being spot-checked. Armed guards have been deployed at hotels where athletes are staying. And Olympic officials say security will become even tighter as they review what led to today's bombing. And you can see how much the nerves are on edge in Atlanta. A bomb threat in an area known as Underground Atlanta sent hundreds of people running into the streets late today. The Underground is an area filled with shops and restaurants. Despite the panic, police found only an iron. Lawmen have received dozens of bomb threats since this morning's attack. All have turned out to be hoaxes. And a bombing like this one brings many emotions to the surface. Some people feel anger. Some feel vulnerable. Others simply say, what's next?
On the South Philadelphia basketball court tonight, players say the Olympics should be the epitome of sportsmanship and the last place for terrorism.
That's for every country in the world to come together and join as one. You know what I mean? To play for gold, silver, or bronze. It ain't had no time for no bomb blown up or nothing like that.
At the sports bar, news of the terrorist attack dominates customers' conversations. They've been following the games, and they just can't understand why.
It's just something can't believe. After the TWA flight, you think, what's next?
At Philadelphia International, travelers coming home from the games say they too are surprised. One family just missed the terror at Olympic Park.
We went by about an hour before, and we were really scared because my sister was walking home, and she was going to the train to go back to where she lives, and we didn't know if she was calling it or not.
A little sad. Kind of put a taint on the games a little bit for us. It had been 3 great days, and then that happened.
While people returning from Atlanta are expressing sadness, shock, and anger, people going there tonight are expressing nervousness. Are you going to the games at all? You have any plans?
No, ma'am. Not at all. If I was, I wouldn't be now.
But Philadelphia Municipal Court Judge Ronald Merriweather, who holds tickets to track and field events, says he's even more determined to attend now.
We cannot yield to terrorism or acts that even resemble terrorist acts, and we must go on.
But go on with the knowledge that America isn't immune from terrorist activities, and to many, that's what hurts the most. I'm Kristen Z, Channel 6 Action News at Philadelphia International Airport.
News of the bombing made hearts skip beats all across America. Anyone who knew anyone at the Olympic Games suddenly had something to worry about. That's true for Rose Namans of Cherry Hill. Her grandson, Tim Young, is a rower for Team USA, and much of the family is in Atlanta. She says she was relieved when they called to tell her everyone was okay.
She knows I'm a terrible worry. I worry about I worried about those children when they're this high, and I worry about them as old as they are.
The family plans to stay and enjoy more of the Olympic Games. Pennsylvania Senator Arlen Specter is chairman of the Senate Subcommittee on Terrorism, Technology, and Government Information. He says the federal punishment for terrorists is a tough one, and that is the death penalty.
I think that there's a good chance we will catch the terrorists who were involved in Atlanta based on the preliminary indicators. I think that we have to respond to what is happening. There's a lot more that we can do.
New Jersey Congressman Jim Saxton heads the House Task Force on Terrorism.
And so the role that we'll be able to play here is in helping to determine whether or not there was an incident of international terrorism as opposed to some domestic act by some American individual.
And that is our coverage of the Olympic Park bomb to the moment. David Murphy is in Atlanta, and we will join him for a live report a little later on in the newscast. Continuing coverage of the bombing and its investigation here on Channel 6 Action News. Park. David Murphy is live in Atlanta with the latest there. David?
Rob, it's been a real roller coaster of a ride down here at Atlanta the last 24 hours, to say the least. Last night, a night of tragedy. Tonight, police running down a number of false alarms. Police blocked entrances to one of Atlanta's most popular eating and shopping areas, Underground Atlanta, in the city's downtown section, for several hours into early this evening. There were reports of another suspicious package, this time in a restaurant. Police quickly moved in, sending hundreds of shoppers and employees running for cover. Steve and Colleen Linke were among the scattering shoppers.
They said we had to clear the store, and we said, oh, we just want to pay for our stuff. And they said, no, we want you out now.
In the end, the package turned out to be an iron in a bag, but this was only one of several bogus threats phoned into police earlier tonight. The shutdown further jammed a downtown area already overburdened by the loss of Centennial Olympic Park, site of the deadly bomb explosion almost 24 hours ago. And while overall the fear factor still appears to be relatively isolated, moments after Underground Atlanta was reopened, for example, the crowds came pouring back in. The level of annoyance and disgust with those behind the bomb